Hey, welcome everybody to Shoot the Gap, the IDP Fantasy Football podcast here at Fantasy and Frames. I'm your host, Jorge. With me, got JT. And tonight we're going to be talking about Dynasty risers and fallers at defensive back for your IDP leagues. Now that free agency is done and the NFL draft is over with, we know landing spots for these rookies. And now we get an idea of what does this do to some of the veterans out there in the world of fantasy football. And for anybody who knows, JT and I, we are staunch supporters that defensive backs are very important to helping you secure your IDP championships each and every year. That may or may not be a hot take within the IDP community, but we don't care because we have proof that it works. So, anywho, we will get into all of that and then some right after this. All right, before we get into today's episode, again, remember, folks, this is Fantasy and Frames Wednesday. If you're watching us on YouTube or on X, over on TikTok as well, we just finished Dynasty 365. Obviously, this is Shoot the Gap, and then we got Fourth and Frames next. And then, of course, tomorrow night, we got the Writer Dynasty podcast, as well as the Fantasy and Frames draft show. So we got a bunch of content coming your way, a lot of video content, a lot of article content, rankings being updated left and right. So, whether it's visiting fantasyandframes.com or following us on all our socials and over on YouTube, we really appreciate your support. And, JT, how you doing, man?
Doing good. Draft heavy. My IDP leagues are usually some of the last ones to kind of get started on these rookie drafts. I just did my home IDP league, big league, 2QB. We start 20 offense and defense, pretty even offensively and defense as far as starters and scoring over the years. Just our draft, and I tell you what, a lot of IDP value. People fell big time. And I tell you what, our first waiver wire run is going to be madness because there was so many IDP guys. Guys were desperate to get offensive players this year. So many IDP did not get drafted. It was probably since the first or second, we've run this league about 10 plus years. I think we're in year 10 or 12. I think this is maybe the least amount of defensive players drafted since the first 2 years we were in this league. And that's when we actually had much lower IDP scoring and we didn't start as many defensive players as I've expanded it over the years and make it more even. So for all you IDP people out there, pay attention on your drafts. Really interesting to see how they've gone. I've got a couple more coming up, but the couple I've been in have been very low on IDP players drafted because it's such a deep running back class. For offense, a lot of running backs, a lot of tight ends, and a pretty solid amount of wide receivers, even for what everybody kind of bitched and said this was a bad wide receiver group. It's not super top heavy, but it's deep. There is IDP value. So make sure if you're in a draft, figure out when your first waiver pickup is because those guys are immediately flying off the board in waivers. I've seen some absolute steals on waivers for IDP rookies right now. It's crazy.
No, you're absolutely right. I will say though, I'm personally very proud of myself and excited because all of my dynasty, well, I should say that there's one league left that we haven't done our rookie draft in, but for the most part, the rest of my IDP dynasty leagues, we've had our, whether it's a new league or startups in rookie drafts or just, leagues I've been in for a few years, we did a rookie drafts. I went on the Sleeper app where I have a lot of my leagues. And I'm very happy to say projections for week 1 matchups are already up there, and I see a lot of green bars, and I'm pretty happy about that.
Oh, that's the way to do it. Hey, even if it's just a projection, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Makes
Doesn't
you feel
matter.
good though, right? Makes you feel good right here. You're like, ooh, I'm already favored. Favored. I got the other guy on the ropes. I love to see it. I love to see it.
It's like suck it, losers, and then watch week 1, the exact opposite happens. And so, but anywho, yeah, man, let's get into it. I know we're running a little bit behind here, and let's just get into our DB risers and fallers here. Let's start with last hour on Dynasty 365, we started positive. Let's switch it. Let's be a little bit negative. Let's be a little bit, um, starting with the downer and ending with the positive here. And let's go to Micah Fitzpatrick in Pittsburgh, because I feel like out of all the fallers that we were discussing leading up to the show, this one is probably the one that, for name value, a lot of people who may not be as experienced in IDP fantasy football will see Micah Fitzpatrick or maybe have him on their dynasty rosters, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that really good defensive back or safety for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Why would he not be a good IDP asset?" JT, tell us a little bit about Minka and why he's a faller.
This one hurts me. Hurts me right here. I love Minka. I think he's a fantastic player. He has done amazing things for the Steelers over the years. So I just want to get that off my chest at first. But IDP purposes, Minka has absolutely fallen off a cliff the last couple seasons. Now, part of that reason is how the Steelers are using him. As he's gotten a little bit older, as he's in his late 20s now, they've moved him more to a free safety role. He's kind of become that back in safety blanket for them to make sure nobody gets by him, make sure he doesn't give up big plays. But he's not that guy. They're not blitzing him. They're not using him close to the line anymore. We saw it last year. He had done a lot of that. I think mostly because they just didn't have another good safety next to him. So he was asked to do a lot of things. Well, we saw they brought in Deshaun Elliott last year.
Mm-hmm.
Deshaun Elliott crushed. Absolutely crushed. He was a top 10 DB for fantasy purposes. If you go look at Fantasy Pro scoring, he was number 10 overall. If you looked at average points per game, he was even higher. He finished 7th in points per game at 12 points per game. He's the guy taking all that, near the line of scrimmage. He's the guy blitzing. He's the guy doing. Minka is now the safety blanket. He's the deep guy, making all the plays, making sure nobody gets by him. Love Minka, really good player. IDP purposes, no go. He was a guy that was clear cut top 3 to top 5 DBs off the board in startups almost always. And one of the first guys that people went to, just not the case anymore. If you can, to me, is a huge faller. I mean, he was, I don't have it right in front of me, Jorge, but I think he was like in the 60s and just DBs, not overall. I think he was like in the 60s for scoring for DBs on Fantasy Pros last year. It was that bad. He was that low. If you could still get some value out of him, name recognition can probably get you to sell him. Sell him. And I hate to say that, but you got to sell him if you can get anything out of him, because he is just not playable. I mean, I hate to say it's not. He's legit not playable in IDP right now. If he continues doing what he did stat wise, he's just not getting you the turnovers. I mean, that was the thing in the past. You're like, oh, he's going to give me 2 or 3 fumble recoveries, a couple forced fumbles, a couple picks, maybe a touchdown. He never had huge tackle totals, but he had like the whole mix. Well, that's just not there anymore. And again, you're just the name. You're living off the name, but he's not giving you. He's not giving you the production anymore.
No, 100% agree. It's definitely the Elliott show there for fantasy football purposes at defensive back, specifically at safety for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let me give you a faller here, and this one hurts because I follow him basically in a lot of my dynasty leagues. I've gotten him off of waivers so many times, and people just straight up just disrespect him left and right. And he produces whenever he's getting given the starting role, and that's Julian Love. Whether it is his time in New York or when he came over, I believe it was via trade to the Seattle Seahawks last year. Like, the guy just has top 15 fantasy point production upside, especially using Fantasy Pros IDP scoring, because the tackle numbers are there, the location on the field, being closer to the line of scrimmage, assisting in run support is there. So you just get that hybrid, player who can, make the tackles all over the field, creep up to the line of scrimmage, assist in run support, like I just said. And I thought, this guy is great. He's going to be climbing up my redraft rankings. He's going to be climbing up my Dynasty rankings because they finally somebody took a chance and they're going to stick with them. And yeah, Julian Love, good for you. And then the NFL draft happens, and they're like, F that. We're going to draft South Carolina's Nick Emenwari, who basically is Julian Love, but like at a higher level, at least collegiately. He is definitely the long-term future at that box safety role for the Seattle Seahawks. Definitely has the more long-term upside there. And that sucks. That obviously, you're going to get now a situation where you're going to see, snaps kind of go down for Julian Love, and you're going to see as the season goes on, and Emenwari's snaps go up, and then the following year, he's probably going to take the lead job. Julian Love may not be there next year, and which would make him a value, at the end of this year for dynasty purposes. But he's definitely a faller after the NFL draft with Nick Emenwari being drafted by the Seattle Seahawks. What are your thoughts, JT?
Totally agree with you. He's a guy that's been very nice and a little underrated in IDP the last couple of years, but has been really good. I think it's the time might be, like you said, it might be up for him as far as being a high end IDP player, unless he moves on. If I can get rid of him, if I can move him for something, I'm doing it. If you're you're in a 7-round IDP draft, which is how most of my IDP drafts work, there are 6 or 7 rounds depending on the league. Man, if I can move him for like a 6th or 7th rounder and grab one of the rookie IDP guys, one of the rookie linebackers or safeties over him, I'm making that move. So I would put that out there as a possible trade. Hey, you want to give me a 6th rounder for Love? Something like that. I would move it. I think it's going to be tough for him moving forward. This whole Seattle team just feels like they're in transition. You're right. It's like they're ready to move on to new guys. They're kind of ready to reset. And I just feel like some of that old guard is just going to get moved out.
No, 100% agree. Let's do 2 more fallers, and then we'll end the episode with our risers. So who is another faller for you?
Yeah, trying to pick some of these guys up. This is kind of a crazy secondary. Cameron Curl for me for the Rams. We've seen some nice years out of him. When he was with Commanders, he had some really nice seasons for the Commanders. But that secondary has gotten really, convoluted for the Rams now. They drafted Cameron Kitchens. They've got Quentin Lake. All those guys kind of play the box safety, deep safety, strong safety. So none of them necessarily play in a set spot all the time, as they like to kind of play that 3 safety dome where they kind of move guys around a little bit. And here's why I don't like Curl. Not that I don't like Curl in general. I just would rather have Lake or the younger Cameron Kitchens in general. So if you Cam Curl for me is a guy that I'm actively not trying to go get at all. And if I can move him for anything, I'm trading him for a 7th round pick. I'm putting him in a combo deal if I can move him. I think his days of being a high-end IDP guy, I think they're past. I think he'll be an okay player. I just don't think you're going to see high-end production. I don't think he's a weekly starter moving forward after this year as a guy that you have to have in your lineup, which he was, a couple seasons ago. You had to have him in your lineup. At this point, I'd rather have Quentin Lake. And especially depending on the league you're in, Quentin Lake in some leagues is qualifying as a cornerback as opposed to a safety. And if you're in a start CB league and you can get Quentin Lake as a cornerback, boom, put him in there. He gets a higher tackle volume. He's playing in the box more. I'd rather have him. And then, like I said, I think Cam Curl and Cam Kitchens are very similar in the secondary. I'd rather have the younger guy. I just think Kitchens is more athletic than him. I think he wins out in the end. So Cam Curl, okay. The days of him being I just feel like he's in the mix with a million other guys. I don't feel like he's a starter for IDP anymore.
No, and that hurts because during his time in Washington, he was very productive for fantasy.
He's fantastic, right? Like I said, and that's what I'm saying. Like he might be a guy you could still sell for something because people will remember what he did in Washington. Because he was a must start, right, Jorge, for
Yeah,
like 2 years. He
yeah,
was an absolute dynasty IDP steal. I think he's like kind of like Love. I think we've hit the peak with him, just like we have with Jordan Love, and I just think we're just not going to see much from them anymore.
absolutely. Let me go to now a follower for me, another follower, and that is Talanoa Hufanga, newly acquired safety by the Denver Broncos. Look, Hufanga in 2022, man, that guy was like he came out the gate with like 26.5 Fantasy Pros IDP points, and everybody was like Hufanga. He was the
Troy
hot name.
Polamalu. People were
Yeah.
like, "Is he the next Troy Polamalu? The Samoan, the actual stud safety." I mean, people were eating him up. I was loving him. I was grabbing him off every waiver wire. I was
Mm-hmm.
flipping out. I was like, "This guy's awesome." But since
Yep.
then, Jorge, it hasn't been pretty.
No, it hasn't, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that what made him such a great IDP asset for you was that much like Julian Love, and you may get maybe picking up on a theme here in terms of the defensive back / safeties, but you want the ones that are playing closer to the line of scrimmage that help in run support. Um, you want the guys who are solid tacklers in coverage. But for the most part, play that de facto linebacker role, especially on teams with really bad defenses. Um, well, Hufanga, after a couple of years, he started switching more to a free safety role and being more of the coverage guy. And then that's where you got like the spike weeks of production where like his, snap percentage in the box went up like week 15 and then it was back down to like, being more heavily utilized in coverage at free safety. And so going to the Denver Broncos, now you have Brandon Jones. Brandon Jones is like legit the guy, the strong safety, the box safety, and Denver. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They brought in Hufanga to basically be the PJ Locke replacement at free safety. And yes, Hufanga has that upside. He has, the big play potential. But as far as being somebody that you could count on week in and week out, he went to the absolute worst situation he could have gone to because this Denver Broncos defense is going to turn out to be one of the more impressive defenses, I guarantee you, folks, as we go forward to the next couple of years. They're just stacking up. Defensive linemen are fantastic. Linebacking core they upgraded this year, and again bringing in Hufanga helps the defense overall, but not his fantasy output. He kind of got locked into a situation where it's like, all right, dude, you're coverage. You're playing coverage. You're playing free. That's what you do. Have fun. Brandon Jones, step up to the plate, get us these tackles, establish that tackle floor. That's what your role is. And, and that's unfortunate because, with people, like you said, he was the hot commodity a couple of years ago, but ever since the 49ers started, using him in coverage and then Denver brings him in to be the coverage guy, like there's no like 3-year window where you see like there's hope that he becomes somebody fantasy viable for you going forward.
Yeah, I mean so if you're in a dynasty league that has defenses, just plays a full defense and doesn't play IDP, pick up this Denver defense. I think this Denver defense is going to be really good moving forward, man. I'm in a couple leagues that do a combination of IDP plus team defense, which is pretty wild. This Denver defense is a defense I want. I agree with you. If you look on our lads and some other sites, they actually have Brandon Jones as the free safety and Hufanga as the strong safety. Don't believe it. Don't believe it, people. I just don't think Brandon Jones was awesome last year. I don't think they mess with him. And the Jahdae Barron draft pick from Texas, I think it hurts Hufanga even more for IDP because I think he can play the nickel corner. I think he can play the box safety. I think he can play outside. So again, Hufanga, I think, is a great addition to this defense, but for IDP purposes, I just don't see him put up a lot of stats because this is a really stacked defense. It's going to be very hard for him to put up big numbers.
We got Craig in the chat over here loving this. He says, Jorge Shai Gilgeous Alexander.
Shai Gilgeous Alexander from Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yeah, so I put out a tweet.
MVP. Just one MVP.
Yeah, so I put out a tweet earlier where I'm like, I've never heard of this player. I don't know his name. I literally know nothing about him. Am I out of touch? And I'm pretty much getting the answer there from Craig. So thank you, Craig, as always. Bring in the fire.
And then Craig
Appreciate you.
asked, he said, so then after that, it was like, and then so he said, SGA always falling, whether I always say he's always falling, whether he's touched or not, because he says he's a riser or faller. Because the big knock on him is that he's always acting like he's fouled and going to the ground. So that was my response to Craig's was he's always falling. And then he said, like a peacock, falling, not flying. So we had a nice little exchange there with me and Craig.
That was lovely. Gotta love it. All right, so that does it for our DB fallers, and of course, folks, for our fallers and risers, you can check out where our people, our IDPs are at in our dynasty rankings. Mine will get updated this weekend over at fantasyandframes.com and on Fantasy Pros, as we are, a lot of us here at Fantasy and Frames, Fantasy Pros ECR rankers in the tournament every year. Of course, you can catch JT's rankings over on DLF. Love the people at DLF, just quality individuals over there. So love what they do. So check out the rankings there.
Jorge, I'm going to throw in a real quick quib. Anybody looking for rankings, IDP offensive combined draft? I just did a big 5-round mock for DLF came out I think today. So go to the site, look at it. I did offense, defensive players combined, where I would draft guys, why I would draft them, where I've seen them drafted, and kind of where they're going and where I would take them. So pretty big thing. I put a crap load of time into it. I spent way more time on it than I thought I was going to. I was up all night one night. I thought I was going to a couple hours. Next thing I know, I'm like 6 hours into this draft article. So if you are on DLF, go there, check it out, kind of see where I've got some of the IDP guys going, especially. I mean, I know people probably done all kinds of offensive ones where they know where offensive guys are going, but it's kind of nice to see where you think some of these IDP guys are going to go in comparison to the offensive guys. So if you're interested in that, make sure to check that out. My article over there on DLF.
Absolutely. All right, let's get into some risers. Let's bring the positivity here, JT. And you and I, we think very highly of this riser here for the New York Giants, second-year player now, Tyler Nubin. You look at the box snaps last year. In 13 games, he had over 300 box snaps. Like the guy, I mean, we saw, right after the draft last year. I guarantee you, we were talking about this here on Shoot the Gap, where it was like, this guy is locked into a role already. He's going to take over the starting safety position, box safety position, because Xavier McKinney left in free agency to go to Green Bay. And the guy didn't disappoint. It sucks, the injury that happened last year, but all reports are that he's going to be good to go for this year. The Giants just brought in free agency Javon Holland, who I'm a huge Javon Holland fan, coming out of Oregon, going to Miami. Again, a big play specialist here, can do a lot of good things. But again, it's one of those things where, again, people are getting locked into roles. He is going to be the free safety. Tyler Nubin's going to be the box safety. He's going to be in a better position to make plays on the ball. That's what you want. That being said, I'm not fading Javon Holland too much. I do think, given the fact that we have a situation in the NFC East where there are a lot of receiving weapons, especially now with Dallas and George Pickens going there, then you have the duo in Philadelphia with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, and now you have Deebo Samuel and Terry McLaurin. Like, there's going to be some coverage opportunities for some pass deflections and potential interceptions. So Javon Holland's value, I don't think, is cratered going to New York. But I think him being there really helps to solidify the role of Tyler Nubin.
Yeah, I love that. The fact that they went and got a guy that is basically a clear-cut deep safety, I just make sure that Nubin's going to stay where he's at. So I love that. Nubin was my number one safety last year. And if we've seen anything in IDP, people say, oh, some of these guys at safety aren't necessarily the most athletic dudes. They don't blow everybody away at the combine. But we've seen the top of the top end guys. They just know how to play. They know how to read. They know how to react. They know how to just do everything. I mean, remember Kyle Hamilton was another guy. You know, people were like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
didn't blow us away at the combine. Dude's a stud. First round pick, stud. Tyler Newman, didn't really blow us away at the combine, stud. Like, I don't care. I don't care about some of these guys. They're just good players. Newman was my favorite safety last year. Was my safety one in my rookie rankings. He was great when he got in there last year. I think to the moon with him. He's going to be awesome. I love him. I buy him now. Buy him now. If he was on the waiver, somebody didn't draft him last year, get him off the waiver wire. If you can trade for him, I'd go grab him. I think he's going to be huge. Holland is just going to help him. He is such an upgrade over Pinnock. He is such an upgrade. And having that guy over the top that you can trust that is really good is just going to let Newman be able to do more. They're going to be able to use him in so many different ways. I think Newman's in for a monster year fantasy wise. I really do.
Well, you have another second year player at safety that you are also very high on. Why don't you tell us about Jaden Hicks?
So Jaden Hicks. So I love Jaden Hicks. When he was drafted last year, he went way lower in the draft than I thought he did. I actually had him as my safety 3. He fell all the way to the 4th round, I think it was, to the Chiefs. It was 4th or 5th round. I was shocked he went as late as he did. I actually loved him. I thought he was great coming out of Washington State. Just loved the profile. A guy played box safety, could play corner, could play outside linebacker, just moved all over the place. Now he gets the chance to start. So if you watched in the playoffs last year, he was seeing a ton more playing time in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl, and he looked good. He looked good. Now we get to see him full time because Justin Reed is gone. Justin Reed signed a 3-year deal with the Saints, opens things wide open for Jaden Hicks to move into that box safety role. I think Jaden Hicks is the absolute best buy value wise at DB right now for Dynasty. I'm telling you, there's a ton of leagues. There's no way anyone drafted him. Unless I was in your league, he didn't get drafted. I drafted him in a ton of leagues and stashed him. I took him with my last pick in almost every Dynasty league last year and put him on my taxi squad, knowing that he was going to get a shot either this year or next year to be the guy. He is your best value. You get the first waiver wire run you have for IDP, go in there and get Jaden Hicks. You will thank me later. He's going to be an every week starter for IDP this year. He's just going to be better and better. And again, right now, he was a part-time starter last year, not much until the end of the year in the playoffs. So somebody's going to go through looking at the rankings and they're going to hit points overall, points per game, and Jaden Hicks is not going to show up on their list. Go grab him. He is going to be really good for a Chiefs defense that's going to be good again. He's going to be one of the top. And we've looked at Jorge, 5 years? We've had a Kansas City Chiefs DB who's been a top 10 player as far as IDP rankings. Like, whoever plays box safety or nickel corner for them scores a ton of points. To me, I'm buying it as Jaden Hicks is the guy this year. He's the guy that puts up those Janarius Sneed type numbers where he just scores through the roof for a season. You're like, what? Where did that come from? I guarantee he's going to be the guy that scores out of nowhere. And people are going to be like, where did this guy come from? Why wasn't he on my list? He's going to score a lot of points. It's a prime spot. That position for the Chiefs have scored a ton of points the last 5 years. I think Hicks is the next guy that scores a ton of points as a Chiefs DB.
100% in lockstep with you. Let's get to our next riser. I'm going to go with San Francisco's Jair Brown. Last year led the San Francisco 49ers in box snaps. Again, you're noticing a trend here, people. He had 59 solo tackles per PFF with 13 assisted, 24 defensive stops. So he was by far the best safety on the team, on the roster, that is, in terms of making plays on the field. You have Malik Mustafa going to be taking over the Talanoa Hufanga role that Hufanga is in Denver, like we talked about earlier. So again, just consistency. Didn't address safety in the draft. Didn't address safety in free agency. One of those things where it's like, Jair Brown may not be, blowing the doors off of people in terms of a real football performance. PFF, he didn't, per PFF, he didn't grade that well. But at the end of the day, sometimes that's okay. Sometimes you just need people who are going to be, there playing the role. And that's just how it's going to be. So, yeah, Jair Brown, definitely somebody who's going to be rising up my dynasty rankings for the foreseeable future until they address that position. Or if not, like I said, the 49ers are in a weird situation. Like, you think they're rebuilding, they're going to be bad, but then they make, George Kittle a really high paid tight end, and then they get Brock Purdy, So I don't know. San Francisco is a very weird team for me to kind of get a gauge, like where they're going, which direction they're going. But the fact is that they have a lot of holes to fill. And I just feel like Jay Brown is going to have the best opportunity out of all the safeties based off of his production last year.
Yeah, they're a team that's like, they're like semi rebuild, but they're not. But they're also in a division that like no one is going to run away with it. So they're still in the mix. Jair Brown, third round pick 2 years ago out of Penn State. Really like him. I feel like he kind of was playing some free safety to strong safety. Now Mustafa moves to free safety. Now with Hufanga gone, I think Brown takes over this role. I really like it. I think he's a really good pickup. He's probably not on a lot of rosters because he hasn't been a starter the last couple of years as far as like full time until last season. I like him a lot. My two favorite guys outside of, your Fred Warner, Nick Bosa's, obviously everybody wants those guys. My two favorite guys on this Niners defense is Brown and Lenore at your nickel corner. Because I like Devon. They got him the big contract. He's going to play that nickel slot corner. If you're in a start cornerback league, he's one of my favorite guys. I'm in an IDP only FC Eliminator we talked about last week. I grabbed Lenore late in that. I couldn't believe he was still there. High end cornerback scoring points. You got to start two guys. So Lenore's a guy. Again, look for him if you're in a league. If he's maybe out there free agent, I like him if you're in a start cornerback league. But Brown I think is a really nice upside guy for this secondary. I think he could end up being really good. Super athletic dude. Super athletic. They kind of, when they drafted him, they kind of set him up that he would be like the guy in 2 years, and now he is.
Let's get to our next guy, and we have two more people to go through because I know Fourth and Frames are itching to get on screen.
Trying to kick us off. They're trying to get rid of us.
Yeah, and when you give them the codes, they know how to do what they want to do. So, but they wouldn't do that because we love each other here at Fantasy and Frames. We're just one big family. So there we go. You chose here for our next riser a Washington Commander that took me back. Took me a bit back here. But when you look at the situation here in Washington, you make some really good arguments. Why don't you tell us about Quan Martin?
Yeah, so Quan Martin, a guy that I'm really familiar with, Illinois guy, just absolute part of that stud DB class that they had with Devin Witherspoon and a few other guys. So we always are pushing, the box safety. We want this box safety guy. We want that guy that's close to the line. Quan Martin technically is their deep safety, but this is why I think he's such a value. He piled on the tackles last year, and this secondary is getting better on this team. Quan also is just uber athletic. I mean, the guy is athletic as can be. He can play everywhere. So even if he is playing deep safety, he's still sprinting people down and making tackles. It's not like he's just playing center field and hanging out. He can move all everywhere. And if you get people that are looking up in your IDP leagues and they're searching around and they're just only picking up box safeties, this is a guy you can get for a really, really nice value, real cheap. Even if you got him off waiver wire, this is not a guy you have to go spend big money on. You can probably get him for $1, $2, $3, $4. Seriously. People are not going to be hunting him down. He's a fantastic find. If you need DB help and a guy that's going to be playable, if everyone's loaded up and kind of stole all the other safeties in your league and are hoarding them, and you're looking for somebody that's not a box safety that can get you points, he's one of my favorite guys because technically he's listed as the free safety, but he scores well. He's getting better every year. He's going into year 3 here. I just see a bust out year for him as this secondary in general for the Commanders has gotten way, way better over the last couple years. Him and Sandstrill's another guy to keep an eye on. He played slot corner last year and he was phenomenal. Then they ended up moving him outside because they were just desperate. Their other cornerback was terrible, so they had to move him outside to be a shutdown corner. But if he moves back into the nickel slot again, Sancho's the other guy I like. Those two guys, keep an eye on Sancho, keep an eye on Quan Martin. Go get him. If you're in a league that expands rosters in the offseason by like 10 roster spots where you can pick up extra guys and you have time before the season starts to drop guys, go get Quan Martin. He's a great hold. I've got him on quite a few rosters. And again, you're not gonna have to overpay for him. You're not gonna do anything crazy. But the guy's just super good on a good defense. Just do yourself a favor. If you've got really strong starters, he's a nice backup. He's a good fill-in. If you just need something for bye weeks or injury, real nice. So go get yourself some Quan Martin.
Love it. Okay, so the players that we've all been talking about tonight, JT and I, are people that we're talking about, whether it's a riser or faller for like a longer-ish window. That we're talking to IDP Dynasty. So of course, for Dynasty purposes, we like to think about 3 years as being like the window we think about for turnover for some of our rosters. But this is a situation, this next player, as we're wrapping up here on Shoot the Gap, that for Redraft and for Dynasty, it's one of the situations like if you're in win now mode in your IDP Dynasty League and this player is available on your waiver wire, especially in those combo leagues that you were referring to earlier, JT, if he's available, like he needs to be on your roster now. Like, I'm talking about Jeremy Chin, safety for the Las Vegas Raiders. You look at what the Raiders have in terms of, run stopping potential. You have a washed Devin White, which just feels horrible to say, but it just happens to be the case. You have a Landon Roberts coming over from Pittsburgh, who, you know what you're getting with the Landon Roberts, which is, a low floor and low ceiling. They drafted Tommy Eichenberg, so it really is the Jeremy Chin show at box safety, who really is going to be the one who's going to get you probably the most tackles on that team, which is kind of scary saying that it's a defensive back. Is that outside the realm of possibility there, JT?
I think he is probably one of the best short-term buy nows in fantasy. I think he leads this team in tackles. I really do. I like Orlando Roberts. He's a great run stopper, but he's not going to give you anything in pass coverage, and he's just going to be filling holes at the line. He's going to be just running in, trying to make plot. I think Chin is going to be the second level guy that makes all your tackles at that second level. So I love Chin. I think he could. I think he has such a high ceiling for tackles this year. In tackle heavy leagues, I just think as a DB, I think there's a legit chance that he leads all DBs in tackles. Think of Nick Cross for the Colts last year, what he was able to do. I think we could see that kind of season for Chin. And Chin has been solid. Cross kind of came out of nowhere last year for the Colts, but they had trouble stopping people, and they were making all the tackles downfield. I think that's the Raiders. I think they're going to be making all the tackles downfield, and I think Chin's going to be the guy making all the tackles down. This year, 2 years, you're not looking for him deep dynasty, which we talked about young guys tonight that we want for the long term. I think Chin's your best short-term option in dynasty. I really like him. I think he leads this team in tackles. I think he's top. I think there's a really good chance he's number 1 DB in tackles, and I think there's a chance that he ends up being top 15 in the NFL in tackles.
All right, folks. Well, that's going to do it for us here on Shoot the Gap, talking about our dynasty risers and fallers. Again, for more input into who we have in our rankings, head over to fantasyandframes.com. Check out our dynasty IDP rankings. That'll be updated by the end of the week. Head over to DLF, check out JT's. Although, JT, you're going to have IDP rankings over at Fantasy and Frames pretty soon, I think, as well. So something to look forward to there. We're putting out a 101 series covering the different aspects of fantasy football from the different formats. IDP Fantasy Football 101, that article is going to be coming out pretty soon within the next week and a half. So look out for that there. Fourth and Frames is next. They're going to be doing the early RB1 rankings for redraft. So all you redraft junkies and everybody who's been staying up late with us tonight here on the Fantasy and Frames networks, we truly appreciate you doing so. So for JT, I'm Jorge. We will catch you on the flip side. Take care.